Welcome back for our final segment, and it is a good one. Imagine a world where you might be one of the first 2 or 3 quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft, and you say, not yet. I'm going to play another year of college football. Now, it used to be obviously that, most athletes would forego their remaining eligibility and enter the NFL as a top pick, even if that meant, sitting and developing a few years on the bench. But in today's world, a world ripe with NIL money being distributed across college campuses, that decision to stay in school made the most sense. We're talking SENSE sense. And that made the most sense for former Michigan prep standout Dante Moore. The consensus, one of the top high school quarterback recruits coming out, and obviously now with an opportunity to stay in school for one more year. With more on that, we check in with Emil on the Analytics Podcast.
All right, so it's the SportsCaster open mic segment. The Analytics Sports Pod boys are here. Emil, Brendan O'Donnell, Ethan Love, Spencer Grant, and we read a great article from Front Office Sports and from Margaret Fleming about Dante Moore choosing NIL over the NFL, one of the controversial decisions of this new era of college football that we're seeing with NIL. And instantly what comes to the mind and the question that arises is choosing an NIL deal over an NFL contract. So in Dante Moore's situation, the likely number two overall pick would have come with a lot of money. Instead, he goes back to Oregon for a one-year deal. I want to hear y'all's thoughts specifically on that financial comparison between NIL and going to the NFL.
I mean, overall, he turned down probably $30 to $35 million in guarantees and starting this season. Sure, he could go in the top of the draft next season, but we've seen this happen before where somebody can be a top draft prospect and fall from grace pretty quick. Quinn Ewers had a first-round pre-draft projection going into the 2024 season, ended up being a seventh-round pick to the Miami Dolphins. So we've seen it happen before. You can't guarantee that you're always going to be a top NFL draft pick, even if his deal is somewhere around $7 million going back to Oregon this season. If he's the second pick, it's going to be somewhere around $52 million over 4 years guaranteed with that fifth-year option there. I just don't see how you could turn down that many guarantees just because you want to run it back and give it another chance at winning a championship.
Yeah, going off that, I wonder how much his agent played into the decision and I'm not sure how much his performance against Indiana would have hindered his draft stock, because he was pretty abysmal in that game. And in one of those like pivotal moments where a team like Oregon is trying to get over the hump and seemingly has been forever, I wonder if his agent and the rest of his crew suggested that he try to get more NFL ready, I guess, by going back to Oregon, taking some sure money and just continuing to develop in a way that gets him more ready to go into the league. Because I don't know, you get drafted really high and go into the league. What if you don't do well for a year or two? Can teams buy their way out of your rookie contract, or is that set in stone, like you said, fully guaranteed? I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of it is guaranteed, but it is one of those things, like you mentioned, talking about development and talking about trying to get to that second contract, which is really breaking the bank in the NFL. So we just read up on three and their NIL valuation for Dante Moore being around $3 million. We don't know exactly what this new one-year deal is, but with you guys bringing that topic up, and we'll let Ethan talk about it first, is it more of a decision that's about personal development and kind of career longevity, like you're mentioning, or anything else? And to me, it seems like it's more about that development and finding a better opportunity. Ethan?
Yeah, I don't think it's really about that at all. If I'm Dante Moore, you're going to have to force me to leave college, because why would I not max out and ride out this college train as long as I possibly can if they're going to pay me money and I can still go to the NFL after and get my rookie contract? And especially if I really believe in myself to keep continuing to perform at a high level, I'm riding out the college train until they tell me I have no eligibility left, because I'm going to take all that college money, that NIL money that I can, and then I'm going to go and cash out in the NFL.
And I can totally understand, too, the development that you can get as an Oregon quarterback. I mean, you had Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel even got a third-round draft pick to the Browns. So if you go to the Jets, are you going to miss out on that quarterback development when the Jets have not hit on a quarterback in decades? They have
Yeah.
not had the success with the drafted quarterback in that long. Do you trust that you can go there? And even though you are making all that money, that you're going to develop and get to that second contract. Sam Darnold had to go to 3 different teams before he got to that level where he could get a second contract, even though he was drafted as the third pick for the
Yeah.
Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think a great point that you guys bring up is that clearly it's about setting up for the future and the track history, the record for both teams, for Oregon and their quarterbacks and their success in the NFL, but also the New York Jets. We know the story. I mean, with Geno Smith failing with the Jets, being successful with the Seahawks at some point, Zach Wilson unsuccessful with the Jets, Sam Darnold about to go to a Super Bowl. So, with that said, how much do you guys think specifically it is about avoiding a potential Jets arrival? Just because we do understand the finances favor the NFL in terms of total money guaranteed, 4-year contract. And then the development side, there's always the chance that if you delay a year, not only do you learn more from a program like Oregon, but you might get drafted by a different team. So with that said, do you guys specifically think it's about the New York Jets and them being a potential suitor for Dante Moore, or it's more about the guy being 20 years old and still having time to shape into being an even better NFL quarterback in the future?
I don't know how much the Jets specifically as a destination have to do with it, because when you look at a team like the Jets or the Browns, like who are the bottom feeders of the NFL right now? You got the Jets, the Browns, the Titans, they have their quarterback. The Raiders
The
are about to
Cardinals
get
for a
theirs.
while.
The Cardinals for a while. But looking specifically at the Browns and the Jets, those are two destinations that are QB hell. And I think any quarterback that has a realistic sense of I'm going to be drafted highly, whether it's this year or next year, I'm willing to bet the Jets and the Browns are going to be equally as undesirable next year as they are this year. So I really do think it maybe boils down to wanting to get more development in a system that you know and trust and that you know is entirely behind you right now, to maybe when you get to those destinations, I feel like he's going to be a Brown or a Jet, whether it's this year or next year, unless the wheels completely fall off at Oregon and his draft stock kind of tanks, then it might be a blessing in disguise, because you might get picked later by a team that knows how to develop quarterbacks, has a better coaching system. Maybe you can sit behind a veteran that would be able to develop you on an NFL roster. But as far as being drafted highly, I mean, they're going to be terrible next year and maybe even the following year too.
Hey,
So I think
but that depends on the 2027 class too, right? It could be some guys that get drafted ahead, like Arch Manning and some of the other QBs that are coming into this 2027 class. And next thing you know, you end up on a team that may need a quarterback like the Steelers because Aaron Rodgers was, under center this year, or another older quarterback like Matthew Stafford ends up retiring and you end up in a more ideal situation. So it could be about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But the draft stock would have to, a lot of things would have to go Dante Moore's way in order for him to get the more ideal situation. And Brendan brought up Quinn Ewers earlier. I mean, he decided to declare for the NFL draft. He cared more about his legacy being a Texas Longhorn, turned down what I think would have been somewhere between a 6 to 8 million NIL bag from, I think, Notre Dame. Don't quote me on that, but it was some big school where he would have been the starter now that Arch had taken over Texas, and obviously let his draft stock slip during the 2024 season for a myriad of reasons, but ended up on a team before they fired Mike McDaniel that seemed like he really would have had a chance to develop with a coach that knew how to kind of set up an offense to where he would be able to learn some NFL rhythm and get him more ready to be a starter in this league. So when it comes to Dante Moore, it's just a lot of things would have to go his way for him to get to a destination that's more appealing than the Browns or Jets, for instance. But also, you go back for another year, you make yourself that much more ready to maybe take it upon yourself to be the one that brings those teams out of such a poor situation, So we'll see. It remains to be seen, but I don't hate staying at Oregon. I just think it's more from a developmental standpoint than money or job
100%. And that's the thing. NIL makes this possible. We kind of all agreed that it's not necessarily about the finances or the amount of money increasing NFL money, but now with NIL in this era, it is possible to still get the money, have the development, and then give the NFL a shot in the future. So we'll just have to see how it plays out for Dante Moore. It could be a disaster, or it could be the best extra year spent in college of his life. So once again, thank you guys, Brendan O'Donnell, Ethan Love, Spencer Grant. That is our take on Dante Moore and this new NIL college era.
That will do it for this week's show. I do want to thank the guys from the Analytics Podcast for their take on that. I want to thank Matt O'Brien for his take on what it takes to be a professional athlete's kid. I want to thank Gabe Loper for an in-depth discussion and a look at what really goes into the unique basketball court designs. And also to Noah Shamami for the 2026 Olympic Ice Hockey Preview. Covered a lot of ground this week. Hope you took something from it. As always, want to remind you, if you like the show, we come on. It's SportsCaster. It's open mic every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock here on WJR. I'm your host, Johnny Kane. We will see you again next week. And until then, Godspeed.